My train is headed for sunshine, my train. When folks get on board, it's always nighttime. When they get off, it's such a bright time. My train is headed for freedom, my
father in charge of a gang of slaves cutting timber for the Baltimore shipyards. I was put to work in Stewart's house as a maid. But after 3 months, I begged him to let me work outdoors because I could plow, I could chop wood, and I could drive a team of oxen. Better than most men. So he put me with the timber crew, swinging an axe, alongside my father. Turns out I was so good, he let me hire myself out for $50 a year. And for 6 years, I cut wood for Stewart. And I also chopped and hauled wood for the neighbors. Now, by developing this strength and muscle power, I was preparing for the hardship and endurance which lay before me. And ladies, I also started to save some money of my own. And that's when I first learned that there were white people who would help me. A Quaker woman used to stop by the fields where I worked, and she said, "Harriet, if you are ever in need of anything, come to my cottage, and I will give you directions to a railroad that goes underground to freedom." A railroad to freedom? From then on, all I ever dreamed about was freedom. So when the Reverend Dr. Thompson started to sell off more slaves, I persuaded my brothers from Ben and Henry to escape with me. But we had not gone far when, frightened by the danger, they were determined to go back. And in spite of my protest, they dragged me back with them. I learned an important lesson from this, one I would never forget. Freedom is only for those who are bold enough to take it, and I would have to run alone. Two things I had a right to, liberty or death, and if I could not have one, oh yes, I would have the other. For I had heard my people's groans and sighs, and I had seen their tears, and I would give every drop of blood in my veins to freedom. And when the time has come for me to go, the Lord will let them take me. When I was 24 years old, I fell in love with John Tubman. And ladies, oh, he was a handsome devil of a man. And he asked me to be his wife. Now, John was a free black, yes. There were many free blacks in the southern states and Maryland at the time. Now, at first, I said no to his marriage proposal because I was a slave. And if we had children, then they would also be slaves. But John overcame my fears and my concerns with promises to set me free somehow. And so we were married by jumping over a broom. You see, there was no legal way for slaves to get married. We weren't allowed in the courthouses, and jumping over a broom was a West African custom and Ashanti tradition, which symbolized going over the threshold and into one's home and just starting one's lives together. And for 4 years, we were happy. Well, except for the fact that John never understood what it meant to be a slave. You see, at night when I would close my eyes, I would see the horsemen coming, and I could hear the screams of women and children being taken to a far worse slavery than here. Often I would wake in terror screaming that I was being dragged away in chains. John often laughed at me and he would tease me, and once he said to me, "If you ever try to escape, I will come after you and bring you back." Do y'all believe he meant that? Yes? I don't know if John meant it or not, but I knew that when I had to leave, I dared not tell John in case he betrayed me. Then when I was 28, I heard that the Reverend Dr. Thompson had ordered me sold, and I resolved to leave. I did not tell John, And with no knowledge of the North, having only heard that Pennsylvania was a free state, I walked away one night alone. My Quaker friend, the white lady who knew my story, I went there that night, and true to her word, she hid me in her attic. And she also told me about other hideaways all heading north. Now, there was a song that my father had sung for many years, Follow the Drinking Gourd. Has anyone heard of it? Yes, follow the Drinking Gourd. Has anyone heard of it? No? Well, like I said, my father sang this song for many, many years. And now I finally understood what the words of his song meant.
When the sun goes down and the first quail calls, follow the drinking gourd. The old man is waiting to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking gourd.
This song told the slaves to escape in the winter. When the call of birds migrating echoed across the field. And by looking up, you'll see the old man, which is the drinking gourd, and is part of the Big Dipper, which is the North Star, and it points north. The river bank makes a very good road. The dead trees show you the way.
Left foot, peg foot, traveling on. Follow the drinking gourd.
You see, walking along the riverbanks, slaves know that moss grows only on the north side of trees, which shows you're on the right course. So even under the cover of darkness, slaves can find their way north on overcast nights. And this is how my father, Honest Ben, taught me to follow the North Star to liberty. But leaving John wasn't easy for me. 2 years after my escape, when I was already bringing slaves to freedom, I had traveled back to Maryland for John because I had missed him terribly, and I hoped that he would come and join me in the north. So I knocked on the door of our cabin.
And some young woman answers the door.
Who are you, I ask?
And there's John looking all shamefaced, telling me that she's his new wife.
Groom and all, y'all.
Well, lucky for him, I didn't have my gun on me that visit. But I kept my dignity, well, sort of. And I didn't give way in a rage or grief. But I collected a party of fugitives, and I brought them safely to Philadelphia. Now, the day before leaving, I stopped back at the Broadus plantation to sing an old hymn to let my sister Rachel and my friends know that I was leaving. You see, whenever we needed to send messages, slaves always did so by singing. Slaves sang as they walked along the country roads, and the chorus would be picked up from miles and miles. And the masters and overseers never knew the hidden meaning of our messages. So I arrived there that day. Now when I arrived there, my mother was just going to milk. And I knew that she would either prevent me from going or insist upon going with me. But the time for this was not yet. So I said, here, Mother, I'll do the milking today and I'll bring it in. And my poor old mother just walked and went off to her cabin. So I put on a sunbonnet. And I started to sing words that meant more than just a journey to the heavenly kingdom. I'm sorry I'm going to leave you, but I've just got to say farewell. I'll meet you in the morning. Farewell, farewell. Now, usually, only the slaves knew what my songs and my words meant. But on this occasion, from around the corner of the house, the Reverend Dr. Thompson came riding up on his horse. Now, all the slaves feared him, so if we were singing or talking and he appeared, we all just hushed until he passed.
but I had no time for ceremony. My friends must have warning, and in spite of what he thought, I must sing my farewell. So I went to meet him, and I bowed as I passed him, still singing. I'm bound for the promised land, on the other side of Jordan. When that old chariot comes, I'm going to leave you. Now I'm sure he was suspicious, because by the time I had reached the gate and looked around, he had stopped his horse and turned around in his saddle and was looking at me as if there might be more to this than meet the ear. So I closed the gate behind me, I waved my hand to him, and I burst out again. I'll meet you there in the morning, safe and sound in the promised land, on the other side of Jordan, bound for the promised land. Then I walked on and I never looked back. And that night I started on my journey. And I was helped by strangers who later on became my friends. And after a long and painful journey, I at last crossed that magic line which separated the land of bondage from the land of freedom. And early one morning, I reached Pennsylvania, and I was in a free state. There was such glory over everything. The sun came like gold through the trees and over the fields. I felt like I was in heaven. I looked at my hands to see if I was the same person. But then came the bitter drop in my cup of joy. I had reached the freedom land. Yes, I was free. But there was no one to welcome me to the land of freedom. No one to take me by the hand. I was a stranger in a strange land. You see, my home is down in Maryland because my mother, my father, my brothers, my sister, and friends were all there. I was free, but they still lived in slavery. Oh, how I prayed that kneeling all alone on the cold, damp ground. Oh, come to my help, Lord, for I am in trouble, and I ain't got no friend but you. Please. And I knelt there all night long until the next morning. Until finally, I had a solemn resolution. I had reached the freedom land, yes, I was free. But my mother, my father, my brothers, my sister, and friends, they should also be free. And I would make a home for them here with the Lord helping me. I then prayed, Lord, I'm going to hold steady unto you, and I know you'll see me through. In Philadelphia, I found work in hotels as a cook and as a cleaner. And whenever I had enough expenses saved up, I'd make my way back to the land of Egypt, which is what I call my home. And I often disguised myself as a boy, and I hid in barns and attics. And to give notice to those who were ready to strike for freedom, I would walk behind the windows of the cabin and I would sing. When Israel was, sing it if you know it. Let my people go.